Good morning, everyone. In this tutorial, I will be covering how we can make three different types of doors. We're going to start with the simplest door that I know how to make, and that is simply door frame and then the door object itself. It has a script on it that destroys the door when the player collides with it. The next door will be a sliding door. It is going to respond to the player entering the trigger, um, and it will slide open and close appropriately. And then finally, third door, we're going to add a pickup or a key that must be picked up before the door will open. So, quick demonstration of all three of these. So, this is the first one. As I walk up to it, I'll enter the collider for the door, and the door will destroy itself. So, you could make a door that way. Very simple, very easy. This next door has an animation on it, so it slides open when the player collides with the trigger. And it will stay open as long as I'm in the trigger, and as soon as I leave, then it will close. And then finally, the third door won't do anything until I've picked up the key that I put over here. So we'll create both of these objects. You'll be able to pick up the key by walking into it. It simply destroys the object. And then when we hit the trigger, the door has been unlocked through the power of scripting. So that's the three doors that we're going to build. And so let's get started. Alright, so I'm going to start by creating a new basic built-in scene. Go ahead and save that before I get started. Save as. Alright, so we begin by creating a platform for our things to sit on. So 3D object, plane. Position it as 0. Let's go ahead and bring in our first person controller. So tools, starter assets, reset first person controller. That's going to bring that in for us. Control D to make a copy of my platform. Just going to drag it out. Using control, of course, to make it snap. And that's where I'm going to place my first door. So F to zoom in. Now to build my door, I'm going to use ProBuilder objects. We'll just start off with cubes. And the reason I like the ProBuilder objects, of course, is because it gives me access to these sub-objects. Using control, I pull out 3 meters high, and then I'm going to use control shift to extrude the top piece 1 more meter. Same here, control shift, so I'm extruding, and I'm going to extrude it out 2 wide. Control shift, extrude out 1 more unit wide. And then finally, control shift, drag downwards to go ahead and just build my door frame. Pretty simple. Let's focus back in on that again, and then we'll bring in another cube. Using control to make sure I snap. I'll go ahead and position it over here. Now, so the people know that this is a door, not just a wall, I'm going to inset my door so that it's not quite as wide. And then simply using control so I snap, I'm going to stretch the door so that it fills the entire hole. Okay, so we have our door frame and our door created. Going to focus in one more time on the door frame. This time I'm going to go up to Game Object, Create Empty, and I want to create an empty object to hold everything that comprises my door. So I'm going to rename this Door Parent. Actually, I want to call this one Destroy Door so I know what it is. Destroy Door. And then, so that I know what these are, we'll go ahead and rename these as well. And we'll call this Door Frame. And cube number 1 is just Door. Alright, so door and door frame need to be children of Destroy Door. The reason I called it Destroy Door was so that it just, when I look in the hierarchy, I know exactly which door it is. Okay. Okay, so we now have our door frame and door completed. We need to add a box collider to the door so it can register when the player runs into it. We do that through the add component function, and we type box, which is going to bring up box collider, and we'll put it on there. First thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and make it a little bigger than it is. So I'm going to extend it out. We'll make it nice and wide. There we go. So we can see that green box that's forming here. That is the collider for this particular object. So that's what's going to register the hit. For it to be able to register the hit, we need to come over and we need to tick is trigger. Okay, that's going to allow it to act as a trigger rather than a collider. The other thing that we need to make sure that we've done is let's go find our FPS controller or whatever object it is that we want to open the door. And in this case, it's going to be the player. I want to talk real quick about tagging an object in Unity. Whenever we tag an object, we're giving it a special name that we can then refer to later in our code. This particular object, the first person controller that comes from Unity, is automatically tagged as player, and that's what we want. So we want to make sure it's tagged as player. And then we also want to put an capsule collider onto our FPS controller. So I'm going to go ahead and raise that up some. And then we'll increase the height. So it roughly matches my controller. The next step in the process is for us to add our destroy door script to the door itself. I'm going to double click on that to open it. Mine is going to open in Visual Studio. Yours might open in Visual Studio Code. Just a quick disclaimer, I am not a programmer, but I am a fairly competent scripter. And what that means is my ability to do things far outweighs my ability to explain what I've done. I will do my best though. These first 3 lines where it says using simply inform the script that we are going to be using some pre-built Unity functions and collections. If needed, those will generally appear there. There are 1 or 2 that you might have to add yourself. For now, this is what we need: the using system.collections, using system_collections.generic, and using Unity Engine. Next, on line 5, we have the public class destroy door mono behavior. That is simply the name of the script. What your script is saved as has to be the same as what you have right here, destroy door. The void start is a function that is called before the first frame update. It's great for loading things. We'll be using it later in one of our scripts when we load some information. Update Void update is called once per frame, and you can think of that as just like a little built-in timer. We won't be using either one of these functions in this script. The one that we're going to use, and we'll have to write this ourselves, is void on trigger enter collider other. Now what that does is it makes the object that it's attached to listen for any other object entering into its collider. In this particular case, we only want this to happen if it's a particular object, and in this case, the player. So we write an if statement. If other.gameObject compare tag player. And then we have our curly braces here. It says destroy game object. So if another object enters the door's collider, it won't register the hit. I'm sorry, it will register the hit, but it won't execute the code. If the object that touches the door's collider is tagged as player, then it will. So we go ahead and just Control S, make sure that's all saved. We take our script from our assets and we drop it directly onto the object. If I select the object in the viewport, we'll see that the destroy door script has been added. So let's hit play real quick and test this. I'm going to do this. So as I walk towards the door, we'll see that we hit the collider, and when I do, the door itself disappears. This is by far the simplest type of door that I know how to make, but it is effective and it is a great place to start. Okay, moving on to the next door, we're going to create a sliding door that responds to when the player collides with it. To simplify a few things, I'm going to make copies of what I already have. Control D to duplicate. Then I'm going to drag them over. Let's start by renaming most everything. We don't need a destroy door too. This is going to be sliding door. So let's jump in there and rename that. Going to select the door itself. We're going to use a box collider to register the collision, but we do not want our box collider attached to the door in this instance because the door is going to move. So that's the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove that component. To remove any component, simply right click and say remove component. And then we can also get rid of the destroy door script as well, so we can remove that component. Now I select the empty parent object. I'm going to make sure my animation window is open. If my animation window is not open, go to Window, Animation, and then select Animation. I like to keep mine docked down here because it's a timeline. First thing I need to do is create the animation itself. So I want to make sure sliding door is what I have selected. I'm going to say create. In my animation folders, I already have a few, but we'll call this sliding door 3 anim. Oops, I spelled sliding wrong. Sliding door 3 anim. Now, with that same object selected, I'm going to click Add Property. I'm going to go down into the door. I'm going to go to Transform, and I'm going to add a keyframe for the position. Now that has added a keyframe at the beginning and the end, approximately 1 second. Let's drag our playhead down to the 1 second mark. Turn on the recording. Make sure that we have door itself selected in the hierarchy. And then I'm going to drag it over and that will create my sliding motion for me. Let's go ahead and turn the recording off. If I were to test this now, we would see that we have a very simple door that just slides repeatedly. So if I were to walk over there, we'd see it, and it just runs and resets over and over and over again. That's not really useful at this point, but we're going to make it a lot better in the next couple steps. So with sliding door selected, I'm going to go to my window, animation. This time I'm going to select animator. The animator allows me to set triggers and other conditions so that the animation only plays when we want it to. First things first is I'm going to create an empty state, and then I'll right click this and I will say set as layer default state. So that's where it's going to begin. Now, we currently have an animation where the door slides open, but not one where it slides closed. So with sliding door 3 selected, I'm going to go to my inspector, and the first thing I'm going to do to it is I'm going to change the name. We'll say sliding door 3 underscore open. Now, Control D to duplicate that animation, and we'll rename this as sliding door 3 close. The key thing to do on the close is we are going to tell it to play backwards. So we simply say -1. That's our speed. Okay, looking good there. So we're going to right click on new state, say make transition. We translate to sliding door 3 open. Make transition to sliding door close. And then one more, make transition back to sliding door open. If I were to test this animation now, we would see something much different than what we saw before. Now it opens and closes, but still doesn't respond to the player. Let's hit escape. To make it respond to the player, or partially to make it respond to the player, is we're going to set some parameters on when the door should open and close. So we're going to add a parameter here, and it's going to be a trigger. We'll call this door trigger. And what we want to do is we want to set up each of these so that it only fires when door trigger is true. We're going to get rid of that as well. We'll come back and do that. Door trigger. Select one more and door trigger. Now, as I select these, you will also notice in the inspector that it has a button that says has exit time. We want to turn that off. We don't want it to wait to finish before it plays the next animation. If we trigger the next animation, we want it to play immediately. So we're going to turn off has exit time for all three of those. Now if I were to test this, absolutely nothing should happen. And this is nice to leave the animator open because we can see what is happening here. So the new state is the only one it's in, and it's not changing. All right, so here's our puzzle. We need the door to register when the player collides with it. We also need it to set that trigger, door trigger, whenever the player walks into it. So let's take a look at the code that I have prepared for us. Again, we're going to skip these top first 4 lines. That's simply the usings. The name of the script is sliding door. Now before we do anything else, we create a reference. In this case, we're creating a reference to the animator component, and we're calling it underscore anim. Okay. We have an animator component on our door. This is a reference to that animator component. We can refer to it in our code by simply saying underscore anim. So in void start, before anything else happens in our script, we need to populate our reference. And in this case, we say this.getComponent animator. So from now on, when I want to refer to the animator, I simply say underscore anim. We have our void on trigger enter, same as last time. Collider other simply checks to see if it is the player. This function I like to put in simply because it tells me if my trigger is firing. There are lots of places things can go wrong, and if I don't get my print output to my console, then I know something is seriously wrong. In this case, we're changing the set trigger on underscore anim to door trigger. And if we set it to door trigger, then the animation will play. We also do it on the way out on trigger exit. Check to see if it's the player. The print simply outputs a little information for me, and then the underscore anim.setTrigger, door trigger, within quotes, will make the animation fire. So we take our sliding door script. Now, unlike the destroy door script, it doesn't go directly on the door. It goes on the sliding door parent. Sliding door, we're just going to bring it over this way, put it right on there. Now the very last thing we need to do is we need to create our trigger for the door parent. So add component, box collider, and let's go ahead and make that nice and big. We'll say, let's say 4 on the X, 3 on the Y, and let's say 6 on the Z. Okay. So now I have that nice big green box here, and that's my trigger. Of course, I need to make sure I set it to is trigger. And then we'll keep our fingers crossed and we will test this. Oh, yes. Never mind. Okay, something is wrong. Ah, I know what is wrong. I do believe. I could be wrong. Let me check. Loop time. I forgot to turn off loop time. I think we need to turn that one off completely. Let's try this again. That's a good start. And then when I walk out, it will go to close. 2 down, 1 to go. See you in the next one. Alright, so welcome back. Here we are on the third and final door for this tutorial. This tutorial is going to be a sliding door that responds to whether or not the player has picked up a key. It won't open until they do. So let's go ahead and get started with that. Now, just like the last one, we're going to start with our basics. We're going to grab the sliding door and the 2 planes, and then we'll Control D to make a copy of those, and we're just going to drag them out. Helps if I hold Shift, I'm sorry, Control, and there we go. Now, at this point, we don't really need to change that much about our door. We're going to change a couple scripts, and that's really about it. Everything else is going to stay the same. The animation is going to stay the same. Door triggers are going to stay the same. The only thing that's going to change is the script that's actually controlling the door. So to begin with, let's select our sliding door parent. And just for good measure, we're going to rename this. So we'll call it sliding door W key with key. Alright, and then secondly, we're going to go ahead and take off the sliding door script. So remove component. Now the script that we're going to activate this door with is a little more complex, so let's start by going over that. This one is called door controller player tag. And we start off as always with our usings. In this particular case, instead of just creating the reference to the animator, I'm also going to create a Boolean, which is simply a true-false statement. And this true-false statement is going to be set to false. And we do that before void start, so we make our reference to the animator so we can access it. And we also go ahead and declare our Boolean here to be false. Now, just like the last one, in void start, we populate our reference by getting the animator component. We have our void on enter trigger collider other registers when something enters the collider for the door. We check to see if it is the player. If it is the player, we say I have entered the trigger. Again, just feedback so that that appears in the output window and I know things are firing properly. Now we have an if statement. We say if unlocked is equal to true, then set the door trigger so that the door will run, will open or close, whichever one it needs to do. That's what we do here as well. So if unlocked equals true, then we will run the door trigger. Now this is where it varies from the other script quite a bit. We are going to create a function in this script and we're going to run it from another script. So the function that we're writing is going to change the value of unlocked from false to true. And it will do this when the player picks up the key, because in that script we're going to tell this script to run that particular function. So public void unlock. Again, void simply means it's not going to return anything, but public, by making it public, I'm creating a reference in the editor, and I will show you that here in just a second. When this method functions, or when this method fires, it's going to change unlocked and say you're equal to true, and it's also going to print the word unlocked in the console so that I know that it has been fired. So that script goes on my door. Sorry, not really the door parent. So door controller, and we'll just drag it over here and put it on the door parent. Be smart about it, John. All right. Now let's make a key. So for this key, I'm simply going to use a cube. And I'm using a cube because of where it puts the pivot point. If we use the ProBuilder object, the pivot point will not be in the right place. By using the standard cube, we will see that that pivot point is right in the middle of that object. If this were a ProBuilder cube, then that pivot point is going to be in a different place. See, when I select the standard game object cube, pivot point's right in the middle. If I select the ProBuilder cube, then the pivot point is in the corner, not really the middle. So we're going to delete that one. And we can do all kinds of things to this if we want to. We can very simply make it, we can make it rotate. We could do lots of things to it if we wanted to. I'm not going to do that for this particular demo, at least not right now. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the box collider and I'm going to say is trigger. And then we have the item pickup player tag script. This is the script that is going to, number one, destroy the key when the player runs into it. That's how they're going to pick it up, by destroying it. And then secondly, it is going to talk to our door controller player tag and tell it to unlock that particular door. So running through the script again, we have our three usings. We have the name of our script. Now what we have here is a public reference to that function in this script right here. Public void unlock, public door controller player tag, that's a mouthful, door to unlock. When we enter the trigger for the key collider other, we're going to check to see if it is the player. If it is the player, we destroy the game object, the key itself, and then we tell door to unlock. I know that's a little confusing, but this script is going to talk to this script, and when it does, it's going to tell this to go ahead and run that script. We don't need to change anything else in here. We simply take this object and put it onto our key. One last thing to do is we have to tell this key that it is attached to this door. And the way we do that is if we look at the script, the item pickup player tag script, we see that it says door to unlock and it says none currently. But if I click this, it's going to show me the object that has that script in it, and I simply select it. Fingers crossed, as always. We're going to test this out. Alright, so inside our game now, we have three functioning doors. The first one disappears when I walk up to it. The second one plays the animation, waits for me to pass through, and then exit the collider before it closes. And then the third one doesn't do anything until my player has touched the key that I've created for them. And when I go to the door now, because I picked up the key, it has run the script which has unlocked it. C# scripting in Unity is a huge, deep, wide topic. All the really fun stuff that you want to do in your game probably requires some sort of scripting. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial as much as I enjoyed making it. I look forward to seeing how you implement this in your games.